we are getting kicked off here with the NATO summit, and well, the family photo has been taken. This began yesterday, but Keir Starmer appears to be missing in action. Apparently, he didn't manage to get there in time for the family photograph, and they didn't want to wait for him to turn up. Now, as you may have seen, bright and sunny here in Plymouth, not so bright and sunny at the summit. It's being described as gloomy. And why would that be? Well, first of all, because Ukraine's losing. That's the main issue for them. But also, they're particularly concerned about the mental acumen, let's say, of the man in the middle there at the front, Joe Biden. But so Joe, of course, got on stage, and the first thing he did as he opened the conference, because he got to open the conference, was to announce 5 new strategic air defense systems for Ukraine. And so we get the theme, the war narrative is going to continue. Eventually, Keir Starmer did turn up. So here he is arriving in Britain's equivalent of Air Force One, which is really exciting. Well, what did he do? Well, he, of course, said that we are going to continue funding and supplying weapons to Ukraine. But on top of that, don't worry, Ukrainians, you make a decision what you're going to do with Storm Shadow missiles. Fire them into Russia as much as you like, because that's your decision. And of course, firing them into Russia would be a purely defensive thing. But it got even better, because gloomy or not, one person had a smile on his face, and that is Jens Stoltenberg, who was honoured apparently and humbled to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Joe Biden. I'm not sure whether Joe knew what he was doing. He was just following the actions as usual, I suppose. So that's the war situation. That's what's going on in Washington for the 75th anniversary of NATO, purely defensive alliance, prosecuting wars right across the world. In the meantime, a massive furore over the actions of Viktor Orbán. So here he is. This is what he said whenever Hungary and he took over the presidency of the European Council. What we can do is what is always the job of the presidency to do, to put the proposals on the table. So we won't be deciding, but we'll help the 27 prime ministers to decide. We'll be there in all the places that are important for Europe. We'll explore all the situations. So he decided that, having assumed the presidency of the European Council, that he would fly off to Kiev. Here he is. A few days ago, he met Zelensky, of course, with an effort to pull together a peace deal. He left Zelensky and flew off to Moscow, where he met President Putin. And this absolutely had the whole of Europe, as we'll see in a second, in a spin. And then he flew off to China, where he met with Xi Jinping. And this was really pretty unprecedented. And as I say, the Europeans absolutely upset about it, as we're going to see. So let's start off with Ursula von der Leyen. Hungarian PM Viktor Orbán is visiting Moscow. Appeasement will not stop Putin. Only unity and determination will pave the path to a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine. So Orbán's there trying to organize peace. Ursula is still agitating for war. Charles Michel, the same. The EU rotating presidency has no mandate to engage with Russia on behalf of the EU. The European Council is clear. Russia is the aggressor. Ukraine is the victim. No discussions about Ukraine can take place without Ukraine. But of course, the first place he stopped was in Ukraine. So I'm not quite sure that Charles Michel thinking straight there. It gets even better. Donald Tusk, of course, Prime Minister of Poland, now that he's left, he was previous president of one of the 3 EU bodies. PM Orbán on his way to Moscow. We will serve as an important tool in making the first step towards peace, is the quote from Orbán. The question is in whose hands this tool is. And then we've got Olaf Scholz. Orbán travels to Putin as Hungarian Prime Minister. The European Council is represented in foreign policy by Charles Michel. So they're all really desperate to make sure that he's put in his place. And similar from the Lithuanian Prime Minister, the Latvian Prime Minister, the Estonian Prime Minister, the Finnish Prime Minister, the Swedish Prime Minister, and the Czech Prime Minister, and the Danish Prime Minister. So the absolute furore over this. But In the meantime, then we have Orbán back in the EU, setting up his Patriots for Europe group with more and more people organising around him for this. So France 24 getting very excited about this situation. And the headline here, Le Pen, Orbán and the Patriots for Europe, is the EU being undermined from within? Well, if we're talking, if suing for peace is some kind of undermining of the European Union, then perhaps that is what they are doing. So I just want to highlight this tweet from Kenneth Roth, who of course is chairman of the Human Rights Watch. And he said, at stake in the French and US elections are the defense of Ukraine's democratic future from Putin's colonial invasion, and with it the prospects for democracy in Europe. The far right has a different plan. And I replied by saying, peace, you mean? And Vanessa, I'll start by welcoming you to the programme first and say, it is quite incredible to me that the far right is now being criticised and, well, first of all, is taking this position as opposed to the liberal elites who are pursuing war as fast as they possibly can. But it's down to the far right to attempt to negotiate peace and being heavily criticised for that.
Yeah, I mean, in France, it's not only the far right, it's also what is considered to be the far left, which is the Popular Coalition. And Mélenchon is getting heavily criticized again for basically taking a position of peace on almost every single issue. I mean, it's extraordinary times that we're living in, where people who are literally brokering peace and an end to war are being vilified and ostracized and absolutely demonized. It's quite extraordinary.
Yes, Charles, I don't know, I'm sort of hijacking you here, but have you got any thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, I think Vanessa's quite right. It's really, this is an extension, certainly in the United Kingdom, of the reframing of the terminology surrounding the far right and extremism. And it seems now that peace is yet another sort of qualifying criteria that's been lumped in with all the others. And it is quite extraordinary. I mean, to see Orbán attacked for reasons, in effect, that are not directly the reasons that anyone really wants to declare. Of course, it's effectively attack by subterfuge, but really it goes at his politics and indeed all the vested interests involved in prosecuting war by proxy in Ukraine. It is absolutely shocking. But to see that nobody apparently will stand up in defence of what he's doing and of peace is a terrible indictment on the people that are supposed to be taking part in shaping their countries for the benefit of those living in them.
Indeed.